Welcome. So here we go. I have d minus 3 divided by 2d plus 1 plus d minus 1 divided by 2d plus 1. So what we need to do in this example is we're going to want to add these, combine these up. So we see here we have an addition symbol. And when adding these with other denominators, we notice that they do have the exact same denominator. So that's going to be very cool. Then all we're simply going to do is apply the operation to our numerator. So we need to add them up. So what it's looking like is it's going to look something like this. D minus 3 plus d plus 1 over 2d plus 1. Now, a lot of times when combining these, we see that my d and my d have the same variable factors, so those are like terms. So we can combine those two terms, and we can find the negative 3 and the positive 1. So what I'm actually going to do is just to kind of break this up a little bit, is I'm going to put those terms next to each other so we can see how to combine them. So I'll just rewrite this expression below. So I'll have d plus d minus 3 plus 1 over 2d plus 1. Well, d plus d is 2d. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2 over 2d plus 1. Then I notice, well, both of these terms in my numerator have a 2. So I can factor out that 2. 2 times d minus 1 divided by 2d plus 1. Now, it's very important to understand that you cannot do any more simplifying for this. Even though you see this d minus 1, d plus 1, they're not like terms. They do not evenly divide into each other. So this is going to be our simplified version. Now, if I wanted to find the restriction, this is a good example to kind of look at this. Our restriction, remember, is when our denominator is going to equal 0. So what I want to do is set my denominator equal to 0 so to determine what exactly that restriction will be. So then by solving for d, I see d equals negative 1/2. So when d is equal to negative 1/2, my denominator is equal to 0. Therefore, my restriction says d cannot equal a negative 1/2. Because if it equaled negative 1/2, it would equal 0. And we don't want it to equal 0. So our restriction is going to be d cannot equal negative 1/2. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you add and subtract rational expressions with like denominators. Thanks.